A sudden encounter in the dark alley. Jake walked alone through the empty streets of New Terra City. It was past midnight, and the cold wind touched his face like a warning. He had just finished a long shift at the factory and was heading home. His boots echoed on the wet pavement, the streetlights flickering above him. Most people avoided this part of the city at night. It was dark, quiet, and full of strange sounds. But Jake didn't have a choice. This alley was the shortest way to his small apartment as he turned into the narrow lane between two tall buildings. He heard something. It wasn't loud, just a soft sound. Like someone crying. Jake stopped and listened. The sound came again, quiet, weak and full of pain. He stepped forward slowly, eyes scanning the shadows. His heart beat faster. But curiosity pushed him to move. He reached behind a pile of trash bins and saw something strange. A small figure was curled up on the ground, shaking. Jake froze, unsure what he was looking at. The figure looked like a girl, but not human. Her skin was a soft purple color, glowing slightly in the dark. Long silver hair covered part of her face, and her leg was bleeding. She looked up, her eyes wide and shining. Her pupils were large and dark, like deep space. Jake raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm not here to hurt you." The alien girl didn't speak. She just stared at him, breathing heavily. Jake noticed the cut on her leg. It was deep, and the blood was green. He took off his jacket and stepped closer. "I can help," he said, kneeling down. She backed away slightly, her body tense. Jake stopped moving and stayed still. "I promise," he said softly. "I just want to help your leg." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small cloth as he leaned forward to clean the wound. His hand touched her leg. In that moment, something strange happened. Her body lit up with a bright blue glow, like light from a star. Jake jumped back in shock, nearly falling over. "What the?" he whispered, his eyes wide. The alien girl gasped and pulled her hands over her face. She was shaking, almost like she was crying. Jake realized she wasn't angry. She was scared and embarrassed. He took a deep breath and sat down on the cold ground beside her. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said calmly. "I just wanted to stop the bleeding." The girl peeked through her fingers, her glow slowly fading. Jake held out the cloth again, this time waiting for her to agree. She nodded slowly, her body still shaking. Jake moved carefully, pressing the cloth to her wound. He could feel her skin tremble under his hand. She was afraid, but also tired and hurt. "I'm Jake," he said, trying to sound friendly. "What's your name?" She didn't answer, just looked at him with sad eyes. Then, after a moment, she whispered something. "Lyra," she said in a soft voice. Jake smiled a little. "Nice to meet you, Lyra."
Thanks.
The street behind them suddenly lit up with flashing lights. Police drones hovered nearby, searching for something or someone. Lyra's eyes widened, and she crawled deeper into the shadows. Jake followed her, heart pounding. "Are they after you?" he asked. Lyra nodded, fear written all over her face. Jake looked back at the alley's entrance, then at her. He didn't know why, but something inside him said he couldn't leave her here. "Come on," he said, grabbing his backpack and helping her up. "You can't stay here." Lyra hesitated, but then grabbed his arm, trusting him. Her grip was cold but strong. They moved together through the dark alley, Jake leading the way, Lyra limping beside him. They didn't know where they were going, but both knew they couldn't stay. The unseen reaction. The night grew colder as Jake and Lyra moved quickly through the narrow side streets. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by old bricks and broken lamps. Jake could hear her uneven breathing as she leaned on him for support. Her steps were weak, but she didn't give up. They finally stopped near a quiet corner behind an abandoned shop. Jake looked around, making sure no one was following them. The police drones were gone for now. but they could return any moment. Lyra sat down against the wall, her legs trembling. Jake crouched in front of her, carefully checking her leg again. The cloth he used earlier was soaked with her green blood. He needed to stop the bleeding, but he didn't know how alien biology worked. Still, he had to try. "I'll need to press again," Jake said softly. "It might hurt a bit." Lyra gave a small nod, her eyes tired, but watching him closely. Jake reached out, gently placing his hand near her wound. As his fingers brushed her skin, her body reacted again. This time, the glow was even brighter. Blue light pulsed from her body in soft waves. Her skin shimmered like starlight, and the air felt warm and strange. Jake froze, stunned by the beauty and mystery in front of him. Lyra gasped and pulled back slightly, covering her face once more. Her voice was shaky. "Sorry," she whispered. I can't control it." Jake blinked, trying to find the right words. "It's okay," he said. "I didn't mean to upset you." Lyra looked down, her cheeks glowing faint purple now. "Touch causes energy," she said slowly, struggling with the words. Jake realized that physical contact might mean something different to her species. Maybe it triggered emotions or powers beyond human understanding. "I didn't know," Jake said. Gently, "I just wanted to help." Lyra nodded. "I know. You're kind." Her voice was soft, full of trust, but also fear. She looked at her leg, then back at Jake. "Will it heal?" she asked. Jake opened his bag, taking out a small water bottle and some bandages he found earlier. "I'm not a doctor," he said with a small smile, "but I'll do my best." He cleaned the wound carefully, avoiding too much touch. This time, Lyra didn't glow again, but she watched him closely. Her eyes followed every move, studying his hands, his face, his expression. "Why help me?" she asked quietly. Jake paused, thinking, then shrugged. "I don't know," he said. "I just saw someone hurt, and I couldn't walk away." Lyra blinked slowly, her gaze deep and unreadable. "No one helped before," she whispered. "Only fear and pain." Jake's chest tightened. Hearing the sadness in her voice, he finished wrapping her leg and leaned back. "You're safe now," he said. "At least for tonight." She looked at him, her silver hair falling over her face like a curtain of moonlight. "You're not like the others," she said, almost to herself. Just then, a sharp sound broke the quiet. A mechanical click echoed from the roof above. Jake looked up, grabbing Lyra's hand instinctively. Someone or something was nearby. They both held their breath, listening. A shadow moved across the wall, fast and silent. Jake pulled Lyra gently to her feet. "We have to go," he whispered. She nodded, leaning on him again, her body still weak but alert. They slipped through another alley and found a stairway leading underground. Jake had passed it many times but never used it. Now it felt like their only hope. "Can you make it?" he asked. Lyra nodded, teeth clenched in pain. Together, they moved down the steps into the darkness. The air was damp. The smell of rust and old stone filled their noses. But it was better than the streets above. At the bottom, they found a small service room with broken pipes and old crates. Jake helped Lyra sit down again and checked the wound. No new bleeding. She sighed in relief. "Thank you, Jake." He smiled. "You're welcome." Lyra hesitated, then reached into a hidden pouch under her torn robe. She pulled out a small, glowing crystal and held it out for you, she said, to say, "Thank you." Jake stared at the crystal. "It's light, soft, and beautiful. What is it?" he asked. Lyra smiled for the first time. "Just a little memory stone," she said. "It holds feelings and trust." Jake took it carefully, feeling warmth spread through his hand. In that moment, something passed between them. Not just gratitude, but something deeper. a silent bond of understanding and respect. Two lives from different worlds. Now tied by a single act of kindness, they didn't speak for a while. They just sat there in the quiet, listening to the world above, and wondering what tomorrow would bring. A race against time. The underground room was dark and cold, but it gave Jake and Lyra a moment to rest. Jake leaned against the wall, eyes fixed on the small entrance they had used. He didn't feel safe, but at least they were hidden for now. Lyra sat quietly beside him, hugging her knees, her breathing slow and shallow. The glowing crystal she had given him was still in Jake's pocket. He could feel its warmth through the fabric. Like a small heartbeat, he didn't understand how. It worked, but he knew it meant something important. Lyra had trusted him, and now he had to protect her. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed through the tunnels. Jake jumped to his feet, heart pounding. Lyra's eyes went wide with fear. Heavy footsteps approached from somewhere above them. "They're coming," she whispered, her voice shaking. Jake grabbed his backpack and helped her stand. "We need to move now," he said. She nodded. Leaning on him as they started down a narrow tunnel, the path was dark and uneven. Broken pipes and wires hanging from the ceiling. Jake moved carefully, watching every step behind them. The sounds grew louder: boots, metal, and low voices. Whoever was chasing them was close. "Why are they after you?" Jake asked, his voice low. Lyra didn't answer right away. "They want my blood," she finally said. "My kind, ... We can power machines, heal tech. Even humans." Jake stared at her, stunned. "That's sane." Lyra nodded slowly. "To them, I'm not a person," she said. "Just a tool." Jake clenched his jaw. Angry now, not just scared. "No one should be treated like that," he said. "Not on my planet." She looked at him with soft eyes. "You're different," she whispered. The tunnel opened into an old maintenance chamber. Rusty doors, broken lights, and the smell of oil filled the air. Jake checked a wall map, though most of it was faded. "There's a way out," he said, pointing through the lower tracks. Lyra nodded. Our steps were slower now. Jake noticed her leg was bleeding again. He knelt down and added more pressure to the bandage. Lyra winced, but didn't complain. "We don't have much time," Jake said, helping her up again. The footsteps were close now, just behind the tunnel wall. Then a voice rang out, robotic and cold. "Surrender the specimen, human, and you will not be harmed." Jake felt Lyra tighten her grip on his arm. "No chance," he muttered. Pulling her toward the lower tunnel, they slipped into a smaller shaft just as the door behind them burst open. Blue lights flooded the chamber, and laser sights scanned the room. Jake and Lyra held their breath in the shadows, hearts beating like drums. Once the soldiers passed, they kept moving. Jake guided her through old rail tracks, stepping over broken machinery and debris. The sound of dripping water echoed. All around them, Lyra began to cough, weak and tired. "Almost there," Jake said, trying to stay hopeful. He spotted a faint light ahead, daylight seeping through a broken grate. "That's our way out," he whispered. "We just have to climb." Lyra nodded, but her legs gave out, and she fell to her knees. Jake caught her before she hit the ground. "Lyra, stay with me," he said, panic in his voice. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing softly. "You're kind," she whispered again, "but you can't carry me." Jake looked around and spotted an old service cart. He dragged it over and helped her lie inside. "Hold on," he said, pushing the cart toward the light. Every bump sent pain through Lyra's body, but she stayed silent. They reached the grate just as another alarm echoed through the tunnels. Jake climbed up, forcing the metal bars loose with his hands. Sunlight hit his face. It was early morning. He turned and reached down for Lyra. "Come on," he said. "You can do this." Lyra gathered her strength and grabbed his hand. He pulled her up slowly, using all the strength he had left. Finally, They both fell into the light, breathing. Hard but alive, they were outside now near the city's edge. The sky was gray, and distant towers glowed with power. But here, on the outskirts, things were quiet. They had escaped, for now. Jake helped Lyra sit against a wall. She looked pale, her glow dim. "We need to find help," Jake said. "Somewhere safe." Lyra nodded slowly, her hand still holding. His behind them, sirens wailed once more. Their journey wasn't over. But for a moment, they were free, and that was enough to keep going. Hidden truths and deeper wounds, the sun had barely risen. Casting a dull orange light over the edge of the city, Jake led Lyra through broken fences and empty storage yards. They stayed low, moving behind walls and rusted shipping crates. Every sound made Jake pause and look over his shoulder. They had escaped the underground, but the danger still followed. Lyra's glow had faded, and her steps grew slower with each passing minute. Her wound was bleeding again, darker now. Jake knew she needed real help, but he had no idea where to go. Finally, they reached an old warehouse on the edge of the old district. Jake had worked there years ago before it closed down. It was forgotten, abandoned, and quiet. He helped Lyra inside, locking the metal door behind them. The air was dry, filled with dust and silence. Cracks in the walls let in sunlight, lighting patches of the floor. Jake laid out his jacket on a pile of old cloth for Lyra to rest. She sank into it, eyes half closed, her chest rising slowly. "You need rest," Jake said softly, kneeling beside her. Lyra shook her head weakly. "They... won't stop," Jake nodded. "I know," he said, "but we need a plan." He began to clean her wound again, using what little supplies he had left. As he removed the old bandage, something caught his eye. Beneath the dried blood were strange marking symbols etched into her skin. They weren't tattoos or scars from injury. They looked like they had been burned into her flesh with purpose. Jake frowned, his hands freezing. What is this?" he asked. Lyra turned her face away, but her voice trembled. "They marked me," she whispered. "To track me, ... To own me." Jake felt a chill go down his spine. His jaw clenched, fists tight. "Who did this to you?" I asked, his voice sharp. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, glowing faintly blue. "Humans," she said. "Scientists, ... They called it Project Emberlight." Jake sat back, stunned. He had heard whispers about secret alien experiments, but he never believed them. Now one was lying in front of him, broken and hunted. "They took me when I was young," Lyra continued. "They said they would study, help us understand each other. But they lied," she added, voice shaking. "They tested ... drained ... used us." Jake couldn't look away. This wasn't just about a girl on the run. This was bigger, more evil than he had imagined. He swallowed hard. "How did you escape?" Lyra looked at him, her silver hair sticking to her cheek. "There was another," she said, "one human who helped. He opened the door and told me to run," she said. "But he didn't make it." Her lips trembled and a tear ran down her cheek. Jake reached out and gently took her hand. "I'm sorry," he said. "No one should go through that." Lyra squeezed his hand weakly. "You're the second one," she whispered, "the second human who cared." Just then, a loud thud came from outside. Jake stood up fast, heart racing. He moved to the window and peeked through a crack. A black vehicle rolled slowly down the street. Silent, armored, deadly. "They found us," he muttered. Rushing back to Lyra, she sat up, wincing in pain. "They'll burn everything," she said. Jake looked around, thinking fast. "We can't go back to the streets," he said, "but we can go deeper." "Deeper?" Lyra asked, confused. Jake nodded. "This warehouse connects to the sewer tunnels. They were used for cargo back in the old days." He moved to a corner and pulled away a heavy steel plate. A dark hole waited below, with a metal ladder leading. Down, Jake helped Lyra up again, though she could barely stand. "I've got you," he said. "Just hold on." They moved toward the hole as the sound of doors opening echoed from outside. Voices shouted, heavy boots hitting the ground. Jake climbed down first, then helped Lyra descend. Every second felt like a countdown to disaster. Finally, both of them reached the bottom. He closed the steel plate just as someone kicked open the warehouse door. In the darkness, Jake turned on a small flashlight. The tunnel was old, damp, and full of cobwebs, but it was a path forward. Lyra leaned against him, weak but alive. "You're risking everything," she said. Jake looked at her, his face calm but serious. "Maybe it's time someone did," he said. They began to walk, deeper into the dark. No destination. No map, just the will to survive. Behind them, the world above searched for blood. But in the shadows, two souls walked side by side. One human, one alien bound by pain, and a truth the world was not ready to face. The hunter arrives. The tunnel walls were cold and wet, echoing every step Jake and Lyra took. The light from Jake's flashlight flickered, casting long shadows ahead. Water dripped from the ceiling, creating small puddles along the old stone floor. The silence was thickened till something sharp broke through it. A loud metal clang rang out behind them. Jake spun around, raising the flashlight. Lyra gasped and clung to his arm, her body trembling from the darkness behind. Slow, heavy footsteps echoed toward them. "Run," Jake whispered, grabbing Lyra's hand. She limped beside him as they moved deeper into the old tunnel. The walls closed in, tighter and darker. But there was no choice. Whoever or whatever was coming wasn't far. They reached a small junction where several tunnels met. Jake paused, unsure of which path to take. Lyra pointed to the left, her voice weak. "That way." "I feel energy." Jake didn't question it. They turned left and hurried on. Behind them, the footsteps grew louder. Then came a voice, deep, cold, and mechanical. "You can't hide, Lyra," it said. "Your signature is marked Jake's." Blood ran cold. He knew that voice wasn't human. It belonged to something programmed to hunt. A bounty hunter, not just any soldier, but one designed to track and take aliens alive or dead if needed. Lyra looked at Jake, fear all over her face. "He's from the project," she said. "They call him Reeve." Jake clenched his fists. "He won't take you," he promised, but in his heart, he didn't know how long they could run. Suddenly, a red light filled the tunnel behind them. Jake turned and saw a tall figure, over 2 meters tall, emerge from the shadows, clad in dark armor with glowing red sensors. The bounty hunter looked unstoppable. His voice came again, emotionless. "Surrender or be neutralized." Jake pulled Lyra behind a wall and whispered, "Can you use your glow again?" She shook her head, too weak. "I need time." Jake took a deep breath, then stepped out into the tunnel. "Hey, metalhead," he shouted, "come get me instead." The bounty hunter paused, calculating. Jake threw a small piece of pipe down another tunnel to make noise. Then he grabbed a loose wire and swung it at an old fuse box. Sparks flew, lights blinked, and smoke filled the air. The confusion gave Jake a few precious seconds. He ran back to Lyra and helped her into a side passage. They crawled through a narrow vent that led into a maintenance shaft. Behind them, the hunter's footsteps returned fast, steady, terrifying, inside the shaft. The space was tight. Lyra could barely move, her body weak and sweating. Jake whispered, "Just a little more." "We're almost out." She nodded, biting her lip to keep from crying out. They dropped down into another room, a utility space filled with old tools and panels. Jake closed the hatch and locked it from the inside. Then he turned to Lyra, who had collapsed onto the floor. Her eyes were dim, her breathing shallow. "Don't you give up," he said, pressing his hand to her cheek. "I need you to stay with me, Lyra." She blinked slowly. "I trust you." Jake felt a lump rise in his throat. From above, they heard metal scratching against metal. Reeve was cutting through the vent. Jake searched the room. Finding an old energy converter with exposed wiring, he had an idea about it. "Was risky, Lyra," he said. "Can you give me even a small glow?" She frowned. "Why?" "If I can charge this converter with your energy, maybe we can overload it," he said. "It might blow the door and give us a chance." Lyra hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a second memory stone. She pressed it against the wires, her fingers glowing faint blue. The converter hummed, lights flickering wildly. Jake backed away, shielding her body with his own. Just then, the vent above crashed open. Reeve dropped into the room. He raised his weapon, aiming at Lyra. Jake grabbed a rusted wrench and threw it at his head. It bounced off harmlessly, but it got Reeve's attention. "Step away from the target," the hunter said. Jake stood in front of Lyra, arms wide. "Not a chance," he said. At that moment, the converter exploded with a burst of blue light. Electricity surged across the room, knocking Reeve off balance. His sensors blinked, his armor smoked. Jake pulled Lyra through the side hatch that had blown open. Together, they escaped again into the dark. The tunnel ahead was narrow and full of steam, but they were alive, still running, still fighting behind them. Reeve stood slowly, sparks flying from his armor. "I will retrieve the target," he said coldly, "no matter the cost." Light of trust, the steam-filled tunnel wrapped around them like a warm, moving fog. Jake coughed as he led Lyra through the narrow passage. The walls were hot to the touch, and the air smelled like burning wires and rust, but it was the only way forward. Lyra stumbled again, nearly falling. Jake caught her just in time. Her skin clammy and pale. She looked up at him, her eyes tired but glowing faintly. "I can't go much further," she whispered. "Yes, you can," Jake said softly, tightening his grip on her hand. "We're almost there." He didn't know where there was, but he had to believe something safe was ahead. He couldn't let her lose hope, not now. They reached a heavy door with strange markings on it. Jake pressed his hand against it and pushed. It didn't move. Lyra stepped closer and placed her glowing fingers near a cracked sensor pad. The door blinked, then slid open slowly with a low hum. Inside was a forgotten power room. Old energy conduits hummed weakly, glowing with fading light. It looked abandoned, but safe enough for now. Jake helped Lyra sit on a bench near the wall. She leaned back, breathing deeply. Her glow was so faint now, it barely touched the air. Jake looked around and found a dusty control panel. He pressed a few buttons. An emergency lights flickered on. "This should keep us hidden," he said. Lyra gave a small nod, her lips dry and cracked. Jake returned to her and gently checked her wound again. It wasn't bleeding anymore, but her body was cold. "You need heat," Jake said, taking off his shirt and wrapping it around her shoulders. "You're freezing." She looked at him with tired eyes. "Why do you keep helping me?" Jake smiled slightly, brushing hair from her face. "Because I care," he said. "And because you trusted me when you didn't have to." Lyra blinked, slowly reaching into her pouch. She pulled out the first memory crystal, the one glowing. In Jake's pocket, "This," she whispered. "It's not just trust. It's a bond." Jake looked at the stone, now glowing brighter than before. "When to share trust with pure intent," Lyra explained. "The crystal connects them." Jake stared at the soft blue light. "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice low. Lyra smiled gently. "You and I. We're linked now." Jake felt a warmth inside his chest, like something bigger than himself was unfolding. He looked into her eyes and saw something more than just fear or pain. He saw hope. Suddenly, the control panel beeped loudly. A red warning flashed on the screen. "Signature detected. Unit Reeve approaching. Jake's heart dropped. "He's back," he whispered. Standing quickly, Lyra sat up straighter, trying to gather her strength. Jake paced the room, looking for anything he could use as defense. But there were no weapons, just broken tools and wires. "Lyra," he said, "we can't run again. You're too weak." She looked down at her hands, which were glowing now, brighter than before. "Maybe we don't run," she said, her voice steadier. Jake turned to her, confused. "What do you mean?" "I can protect you," she said. Standing slowly, "I can use the bond between us. But you must trust me completely." Jake didn't hesitate. "I already do," he said. Walking to her side, Lyra placed both hands on his chest. Her glow spread through him like waves of light. Jake gasped, not from pain, but from the strange warmth filling his body. It felt like his blood had turned to light. Memories, emotions, and sounds flashed through his mind: her childhood, her fear, her escape, and then her trust in him. It all flowed into him through the crystal connection. He didn't feel human anymore. He felt something more. The door behind them shuddered as Reeve slammed into it from the other side. The lights blinked, alarms rang, metal bent under pressure. Jake turned, his body now glowing with the same energy as Lyra's. "Let him come," he said, voice calm. Lyra stood beside him, no longer weak or shaking. Her glow now wrapped around both of them. She raised her hand, and the memory crystal floated into the air. It split into two, forming shields of light. Around them, the door burst open. Rev entered, weapon raised, but he paused, sensors struggling to read the new energy. "This form is unauthorized," he said, confused. Jake stepped forward, eyes glowing bright. "She is not yours to take," Jake said. "She's not a project," Lyra added. "She's a person." Reeve tried to fire, but the light around them stopped the blast. The shot dissolved in the air like smoke in wind. Then Jake and Lyra raised their hands together. A burst of pure energy exploded from their bond. Reeve was thrown back into the wall, sparks flying from his armor. The room shook, but they stood still, united. The unexpected ending: the room was still shaking as smoke filled the air. Reeve's armored body slid across the floor, sparks bursting from his back. He groaned, metal joints grinding, his red sensor lights flickering wildly, but he wasn't done yet. Jake stood in front of Lyra, the glow from their bond still wrapped around them. His heart was racing, but he felt no fear. Lyra's hand rested lightly on his shoulder, her strength now flowing into his. Together, they were something. Knew something Reeve had not been programmed to fight. "System override," Reeve said in a low, mechanical voice, switching to lethal mode. His arms shifted, weapons unfolding from hidden compartments, guns, blades, and a shoulder cannon, all activated at once. Jake stepped back slightly, pulling Lyra with him. "Any more tricks?" he whispered. Lyra looked at him, then at the memory crystals hovering nearby. "They weren't made to destroy," she said, "but we can defend." Reeve raised his cannon, aiming at Lyra's chest. Jake didn't think. He jumped in front of her, ready to take the hit, but before the weapon could fire, the air around them pulsed. A sharp, ringing hum filled the room. The crystals reacted on their own, spinning faster and faster. A blue wave spread from them like a dome, covering Jake and Lyra. Reeve's blast fired bright and hot, but it hit the shield and vanished without a sound. Reeve paused, confused. Jake felt the energy rising again inside him. His voice was calm but strong. "You can't win this." Lyra stepped beside him, her glow even brighter now. "This bond," she said, "isn't just power, it's life." She closed her eyes, and the crystals fused into one, floating above them like a small sun. It pulsed with their combined emotions: courage, trust, pain, hope. The room began to shift, the lights dimming, machines reacting to the energy. Reeve raised his blades and charged forward. But Jake met him halfway, catching the metal arm with glowing hands. The metal hissed and cracked as the energy burned through it. Lyra raised her other hand, sending a wave of light through Reeve's chest. The hunter screamed a cold, static scream. His body jerked, sensors flashing red, then black, and then silence. Reeve fell to his knees, then collapsed fully. His systems dead. Jake stood over him, breathing hard. His skin still glowed faintly. But the crystal above dimmed slowly. Lyra walked to Reeve's body and touched his chest. Sleep. She said softly, no more pain. Jake looked at her, confused. You felt sorry for him? Lyra nodded. He didn't choose what he became. Jake nodded slowly. Understanding her heart was even stronger than her powers. The room was quiet now. The fight over, the city's alarms had gone silent. Too perhaps the energy shock had shut down local systems, but they couldn't stay here forever. Jake helped Lyra sit, then checked her bandages. You okay? He asked. She smiled faintly. Yes. Thanks to you. Jake sat beside her, resting his head against the wall. They didn't speak for a moment, just listened to the silence they had earned. Finally, Lyra reached into her pocket and pulled out a final small stone. It was dull barely glowing. This is for goodbye, she said. Jake frowned. Goodbye. Lyra looked into his eyes. They'll come again, she said. More hunters, more danger. Jake's face tightened. Then I'll fight them too. Lyra shook her head. I can't let you keep risking your life. She placed the stone in his hand. It will hold everything, she whispered. My thoughts, memories, feelings. Jake closed his hand around it. I don't want memories, he said quietly. I want you. Lyra blinked, her lips trembling. Then, footsteps echoed in the distance, friendly this time. Rescue drones sent by a hidden rebel group Lyra had once trusted. They had picked up the energy signature from the crystal burst. They arrived, careful and respectful, lowering their weapons when they saw Jake and Lyra. A female rebel stepped forward, looking at Lyra. We've been searching for you, she said. Lyra nodded slowly. I found someone who helped me. The rebel looked at Jake and smiled. Then he is one of us. They gave Jake a badge and a small device, if you ever need to find her again. The woman said, use this. Lyra turned to Jake, her hand resting on his chest one last time. Keep the bond alive, she whispered. Jake held her close, just for a moment, and then she was going to carried away by people who would protect her. He stood alone, the small stone glowing faintly in his hand. But in his heart, he wasn't alone anymore. Because somewhere in the galaxy, an alien girl glowed softly. Thinking of the human who touched her leg, not with harm, but with kindness, and changed both of their worlds forever.